Jispa. Jispa was a Greed Island player, hired by Patera and a founding member of an alliance formed to clear the game. He was responsible for taking new members of the alliance to Kasoftro with a magnetic force card. Right after Genthru reveals himself as the bomber in the alliance base, Jispa attempts to attack Genthru from behind, but Genthru is too fast and uses his Little Flower Nin ability to severely wound Jispa's face. To save Jispa's life, Nyx begs the alliance members to hand over their cards to Genthru. Later, Puhat confronts Genthru on his own in Batera's mansion and explains that Nyx wants to use the Angel's Breath card on Jispa. However, Genthru sees through Puhat's attempt at negotiating and ruthlessly kills him. Sometime after Puhat's death, Nyx confronts Genthru and informs him that Jispa has died, with Genthru showing no concern or remorse. In the manga, Jispa's terrible injuries were shown to be much more graphic, better detailing the agonizing pain Jispa was in for quite some time before his death. Assassin A. Assassin A was one of the assassins hired by the Ten Dons to eliminate the Phantom Troop during the York New City arc. During his search, Assassin A smells blood and realizes that the target has deliberately left a trail of blood and then wiped it up to leave just enough of a scent. He breathes in the smell and says that only those as skilled as himself can detect it, adding that he and his target are both predators addicted to killing. He makes his way to a room with Assassin F tied to a chair and stabbed with several pins in his legs. After Assassin A quickly throws a knife at his chest to confirm that he's dead, Chrollo peers out from behind him and assures him that he won't use any boring traps. Chrollo pulls out a pin from Assassin F's head and asks that they fight one-on-one. Radiating his aura and holding a large knife in his hand, Assassin A happily agrees to the duel. Breathing heavily and sweating profusely, Assassin A laughs and asks Chrollo why he's still alive as his body is shown pinned in pieces up against the wall. Chrollo explains that the Nin creatures who have eaten parts of him are called indoor fish and can only exist in a closed room. He adds that they are carnivores and enjoy human flesh, explaining to Assassin A that he can't feel pain or bleed while they are feeding on him. As Chrollo opens a large window and explains that he can't die until the creatures disappear, Assassin A's mangled corpse falls bloody to the floor. Although the process of having his body eaten was said to be painless, the moment the windows open would have surely led to a rush of incredible pain as Assassin A felt his organs and body falling apart moments before his death. Pokkle. Pokkle was a participant in the 287th Hunter exam. Before learning Nin, he relied on a bow and arrow. Nothing fancy. But his arrows were laced with a paralyzing poison that could keep a target down for a week with just a scratch. He made it to the final phase by pure dumb luck. Killua handed him a win just because he wasn't interested in fighting him. With that, he officially became a hunter of fantastic beasts, specializing in the search for scientifically undocumented creatures. By the time Gon and Killua were learning Nin under wing, Pokkle had already figured out his own ability, called Rainbow, a set of 7 differently colored aura arrows, each with its own effects. Then came the worst decision of his life, leading a small expedition into the NGL to investigate rumors of giant insects. With 3 other members of his team, including Ponzu, they infiltrated the heavily restricted region, hoping to find the new species of man-eating bugs. On their way, they came across a dead soldier's body, and while inspecting it, his team got ambushed by a squad of Chimera Ants. Thinking quickly, he used his Nin arrows to take down the 3 ants, giving his friends time to escape. Realizing that they cannot handle the threat on their own, they tried to reach the other hunters for help, but failed, and their evacuation plan was cut short when an ant popped out the ground and decapitated one of his teammates on the spot. He managed to kill the ant, but the spider-like Pike then appeared and devoured another one of his friends. He tried to fight back, but Pike was too fast, catching his arrows mid-air. Desperate, he resorted to straight-up punches, and just when it looked like he had the upper hand, Zazen blindsided him with a paralyzing neurotoxin from her tail, leaving him incapacitated. Zazen ordered his body to be taken to the queen, convinced he had the nutrients of 1,000 humans. At this point, Pokkle was helpless, but thanks to an antidote he had hidden in his mouth, he regained some movement and hid among the pile of skulls, which were literal leftovers from the queen's meals. He knew he had to escape, but before he could do anything, Pitou arrived and instantly sensed his presence. And this is where things got really bad. Pitou lobotomized him, sticking their fingers directly into his brain and forcefully manipulating him into spilling everything he knew about Nin. Completely helpless, he had no choice but to explain how Nin worked and how to determine a person's Nin category. When Pitou was done, he was handed over to the pig, who butchered him and served him up as a meal for the queen. Pokkle's fate is straight up horrifying. First, the paralysis. He could feel everything but could not move. Then came the lobotomy, which, let's be real, was pure agony. Pitou was digging around his brain while he was still alive, and since Nin users have enhanced durability, he probably lasted longer than a normal person would. Even if he wasn't fully conscious by the end, he still had to endure his body getting butchered before becoming nothing more than a meal. Kurt and Reina. Kurt and Reina were just two regular kids living in NGL with their mom, Kurt being the protective older brother, and Reina the little sister who followed him everywhere. One day, they decide to go fishing, catch a few fish, and cook them up as a surprise for their mom. On their way home, they come face to face with a giant crab-like Chimera Ant, and unfortunately for them, the queen had just moved on from eating fish and was looking for something a little more nutritious. Let's say, for example, humans. The crab ant grabs both kids and hauls them off to the queen, who devours them completely. Whether they were already dead by the time she ate them, or if they were alive when she bit down, no one knows for sure. But either way, their fate was straight up horrifying, and this was just the beginning. After Kurt and Reina, the Chimera Ants started hunting down more people, abducting men, women, and children for their homes like livestock. Most of them were butchered and turned into meatballs to feed the queen. Soon after, the people weren't just meant to be fed to the queen, but for the ants as well. Others weren't even that lucky. They were kept as playthings for the ants, toyed with until their captors got bored and killed them in the most sadistic ways imaginable. Even after the death of the queen, the horrors continued, with the birth of the Ant King, who steps out of the nest for the first time and kills a little girl before eating her brain. Kurt and Reina's deaths marked the beginning of the Chimera Ant nightmare, one of the darkest moments in HunterxHunter. Being eaten alive, whether by the queen or any other Chimera Ants that came after, is easily one of the most painful and terrifying ways to die in the series. Kurta Clan. The Kurta Clan was a small secluded group living deep in the forests of Lusco province. They had to live in hiding because of one unfortunate trait, their scarlet eyes. When their eyes turned red, they became stronger and more intense, which freaked outsiders out. But at the same time, those very same eyes were considered priceless treasures on the black market, making the Kurta Clan a prime target for hunters and collectors. Because of all this, the clan had strict rules about venturing into the outside world. Anyone who wanted to leave had to pass a series of tests, written exams, an oral interview, and the toughest one of all, a trip into town while keeping their cool. The final test involved using special eye drops that kept their scarlet eyes active longer than normal, making sure they can handle outside stress without revealing their true nature. If their eyes turned red, they failed, since that means that they couldn't control their emotions. Kurapika, one of the youngest members, cheated his way through. His best friend, Pyro, swapped the special eye drops with regular water, letting Kurapika pass even after his eyes flared up, and beat down some thugs in the nearby town who insulted Pyro. This gave him the freedom to leave, and at just 12 years old, he set off on a journey to find a doctor for Pyro, who was suffering from injuries that he got when he saved Kurapika at some point. But 6 weeks after Kurapika left, everything changed. The entire Kurta clan, all 128 of them, was massacred by the Phantom Troop. Also, they could steal their eyes and sell them on the black market. The gruesome scene was later discovered by a female traveler who stumbled upon the village, filled with the clan members' mutilated remains, and further investigation revealed more terrifying details about their deaths. Families were forced to sit facing each other, then stabbed repeatedly and decapitated while still alive. Full-blooded Kurta members had their eyes gouged out, while those who married into the clan had their eyes crushed, suggesting that the troop was making an example out of them. The adult men had even more wounds, implying they fought back before being overpowered. The most horrific part? The troop is believed to have tortured and mutilated children in front of their parents to force their eyes into an even deeper shade of red before killing them. And as if that wasn't enough, they left behind a chilling message. We'll accept anything you leave, but don't ever take anything away from us. Kurapika returned to find his people massacred, their bodies desecrated, and their eyes scattered across the underworld. With no one left, he swore vengeance upon the Phantom Troop and dedicated his life to tracking down his clan's stolen eyes. While some characters in HunterxHunter died in battle or were swiftly executed, the Kurta Clan's death was a slow, calculated massacre. Their suffering was deliberate, their pain was drawn out, and in the end, they weren't even allowed to rest in peace, as their very identities were stolen and sold as trophies. And the fact that the troops specifically mutilated children in front of their families just to enhance the colors of their eyes is next level cruelty. It's not just physical pain, it's mental and emotional torment that lasted hours, maybe even days. I mean, can you really blame Kurapika for being obsessed with revenge? Chrollo and the Phantom Troop lost that one friend, and suddenly they get a pass for becoming a bunch of mass murderers. Meanwhile, Kurapika lost 128 of his people and had to watch their eyes get sold like collector's items. If anyone has the right to seek justice, it's him. Nanika's victims. Nanika is one of the creepiest and most dangerous entities in HunterxHunter, and it just so happens to be sharing a body with Alika Zoldyck. No one knows when or how Nanika became a part of Alika, but they've been together since Alika was a little kid. Even the Zoldyck family is completely in the dark about what Nanika actually is. The only one who seems to understand it at all is Killua, who saw Alika transform as a kid and figured out how to change them back. One of the first incidents with Nanika happened when Alika was still a toddler. She asked one of the Zoldyck family butlers, Mitsuba, to do 3 really simple things: carry her, walk upstairs with her, and lift her into the air. Mitsuba went along with it, but the second she fulfilled the 3rd request, Alika's eyes and mouth turned pitch black. Mitsuba panicked and called for help. Killua ran over and figured out that if he asked Alika to do something, they'll turn back to normal. He asked them to make him go hi-hi, and just like that, Alika was back to herself. Mitsuba later told Silva and Kikyo about the incident. The Zoldycks realized that once Alika gets 3 requests fulfilled, her body goes into Nanika mode. To test the ability, Kikyo ordered Mitsuba to refuse any requests. Mitsuba obeyed, declining 4 times in a row. Not only was Mitsuba instantly crushed into minced meat, but so was her lover Hassam, who wasn't even near Alika at the time. That's when the Zoldycks realized: refuse 4 times, and you're dead. After the incident, when Nanika granted one of the butler's wish to become a millionaire, Illumi steps in and asks if he can choose the new butler, which he was allowed to do so. He told the new butler, Kasuga, to accept every request Alika made, promising to spare her and her lover if she cooperated. Alika's first request to her is her liver. Of course, the frightened butler declined. Then Alika asked for her duodenum, then her spine, and finally her brain. After Kasuga refused all of Alika's requests, 67 people were instantly crushed into an unrecognizable mess, including Kasuga herself. And that's when the Zoldycks realized something even worse. The bigger the last wish, the more devastating the penalty for refusal. After the incident with Kasuga, Nanika's ability had already wiped out a dozen more people when Kikyo and Miluki were testing it, including 6 couples. Miluki once used it to kill a target by making a tourist named Muna pay the price. He told Muna to ignore Alika's request, leading to 13 more deaths. Nanika's victims are crushed into a disgusting pulpy mess, instantly turned into ground meat as if an invisible force squeezed them like a stress ball until their bodies couldn't hold it together anymore. And if that isn't a horrifying way to go, then I don't know what is. Porcupine. Porcupine was a member of the Shadow Beast, basically the Mafia's elite enforcers who were supposed to be unstoppable. When they were sent by the Mafia to track down a group of thieves, 4 members of the Shadow Beast, including Porcupine, arrived at the Gordeo Desert, where they found Uvogin obliterating dozens of Mafia members. Right off the bat, Uvogin obliterates Worm with a single Big Bang impact, leaving nothing but a massive crater. The other 3 Shadow Beasts jump back to avoid getting caught in the shockwave, but Uvogin just grins and asks who's going to die next. When Uvogin goes in for a head-on punch on Porcupine, his fist doesn't even reach Porcupine's face, because of the insanely sharp barrier of needle-like hair sticking out of his face. Porcupine smirks, explaining that Uvogin's strength won't matter if he physically can't touch him. Meanwhile, Rabid Dog gets a sneak attack Kin, taking a bite out of Uvogin's flesh, while Porcupine wraps thousands of hair strands around Uvogin's hand and locks himself in place. Uvogin tries shaking him off, but quickly changed tactics. He just swings Porcupine as a weapon to punch Leech in the face. Porcupine reacts fast by softening his hair near Leech to prevent the impact, showing just how much control he has over his ability. Rabid Dog's neurotoxin kicks in and paralyzes Uvogin. With their strongest opponent temporarily down, Leech moves in, injecting dozens of living leeches into Uvogin's open wound. In one of the most brutal comebacks ever though, Uvogin bites off Leech's head and hurls his skull at Rabid Dog, instantly killing him. That leaves just one Shadow Beast still hanging onto Uvogin's fist, Porcupine. Now, he's terrified. He mutters to himself that his hair will protect him from anything. Realizing that not even the toughest blade could cut Porcupine's hair, Uvogin unleashes a deafening roar at point-blank range. Porcupine's entire body shuts down. Blood explodes from his ears, eyes, and mouth. His eardrums shattered, his brain gets scrambled, and his organs rupture from the sheer force of the sound waves. He never even gets a chance to process what happened. His body is just done. Uvogin then casually tosses the corpse aside, laughing as he declares needles can't deflect sound. In short, if you're ranking painful ways to die in HunterxHunter, getting roared to death by Uvogin is absolutely near the top. Gyro's dad. Before Gyro became the founder and ruler of NGL, he had one of the worst childhoods in the series. He grew up in a construction camp with his deadbeat dad, who was less of a father and more of a grumpy beer-soaked shadow lurking in the background of his life. The single father barely spoke to Gyro, except to bark out strict, borderline insane rules. Gyro wasn't allowed to make a sound while sleeping, and he wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom after 9 p.m. Why? Because the creaking of his bed annoyed his dad, who slept right below him. Despite all this, Gyro idolized him for 2 reasons. When Gyro was 5 and caught a life-threatening fever, his dad stayed with him all night, watching over him. And no matter how strict he was, his dad never kicked him out of their home. That was enough for young Gyro to think that maybe he cares after all. But one day, his whole world shattered. A co-worker casually dropped the truth. The only reason his dad kept him around was because he brought home money. Even worse, it wasn't his father who had cared for him during his fever. It was a kind neighbor. His father actually hadn't lifted a finger. Blinded by rage, he attacked the co-worker and got brutally beaten in return. As he lay on the ground, bleeding, he looked up and saw his dad. Hoping his father would step in and save him, he saw the man just walk past without any care in the world. That's when it hit Gyro. His father never loved him. Everything he believed in, every shred of warmth he thought his dad had, was a lie. That night, Gyro returned home to find his father, as usual, drinking away his existence. With a cold-blooded resolve, he picked up a hammer and caved his father's skull in. Imagine the fatal hit, blinding pain, skull cracking. For a man who made his son's life miserable, his death was poetic. He spent his final moments as helpless as he made Gyro feel his entire life. Johness the Dissector. Johness the Dissector was a full-blown psychopath who turned murder into his personal hobby. Before being captured by the blacklist hunter Lippo, he racked up a body count of 146 victims. Men, women, kids, it didn't matter. And he didn't just kill them, he ripped them apart with his bare hands, sometimes into thousands of pieces. One of his most brutal crimes was literally gutting alive one poor 11-year-old. When the cops finally caught him, he didn't even put up a fight. Instead, he casually bit off a huge chunk of the police officer's arm, just because he felt like it. Naturally, his brutal series of crimes threw him in the prison for a 968-year sentence. During the 287th Hunter exam, Lippo was picked to be the examiner for the 3rd phase, held at the Trick Tower. This is when Jonis gets a chance at a little fun. He and 4 other inmates are offered a deal. Fight the examinees, and for every hour they stall, they shave off a year from their sentence. The prisoners find themselves pitted against Gon, Killua, Kurapika, Leorio, and Tonpa in a series of one-on-one challenges. After 2 wins and 2 losses, the fate of the challenge falls on the last match between Jonis and Killua. The moment Jonis reveals himself, Leorio freaks out and warns everyone that this guy is a legendary mass murderer. But Killua ignores Leorio's warnings and casually asks Jonis how he wants to fight. Jonis tells him that he's got the wrong idea. He doesn't care about the exam. He just wants to tear Killua apart. After a deathmatch has been decided, Killua blitzes forward before Jonis can speak again. Killua rips Jonis' heart straight out of his chest, and it took some time before Jonis realized what just happened. His body is still standing, but there's this gaping hole in his chest where his heart used to be. Panic sets in, and with his hand shaking, he begs Killua to give his heart back. Killua just smiles while holding the heart right in front of him. Jonis collapses, twitching and convulsing, until he finally dies. That's when Killua casually hands him back the heart. This was not a quick or painless death. Most people imagine getting their heart ripped out would kill them instantly, but that's not how the human body works. When the heart is suddenly removed, your brain doesn't shut down right away. There's a brief moment where your body realizes what happened, your blood pressure drops to 0, and your organs go into immediate shock. Jonis was still conscious for a few seconds. He felt the searing pain as his nervous system fired off warning signals that his body was literally shutting down. His lungs struggled, his limbs convulsed, and his brain was caught in a horrifying fleeting moment of pure panic. And the worst part is, seeing his own heart beating in Killua's hands right before he dies. For someone who lived for the thrill of killing, he deserved every second of his agonizing demise, while a kid smirked down at him like it was nothing.